as Gaurav mentioned earlier, there's quite a few of us here in Abu Dhabi this week. And last night we went for dinner in the creative district. And on the way back in the taxi, we swept past the Guggenheim and the Louvre. Now, when I look at these paintings, I think, well, perhaps these paintings wouldn't look too out of place hanging on those famous walls. But what else do these paintings have in common? Yeah, you've guessed it. They're all AI generated. And in fact, this painting on the left sold for over $400,000 at a Christie's auction. But what's that got to do with education? Well, as these paintings show, AI is rapidly advancing on human capabilities. With basic and cognitive skills, we're seeing them outpacing human performance on skills such as language understanding, code generation, and reading and comprehension. But we're also seeing advancements on more complex and creative skills. Take the AI lawyer, for example, scoring in the top 90th percentile of the bar exams. Or Anna Indiana, an AI singer-songwriter who debuted her album in late 2023. These changes are happening, and they're happening quickly. In the US, it took just 2 years to reach 40% adoption, and that's in comparison to 30 years for the personal computer. So what does that mean for our jobs? So it's predicted by 2027, a quarter of our jobs will be meaningfully impacted. And this means there will be winners and there will be losers. For some, it will complement, bringing speed and adaptability in skills such as graphic designers. For others, it will elevate, with helping leadership and advanced decision-making in human resources. For others, it will augment, helping us with our critical thinking and problem solving. And as we're all becoming aware, for some, it will simply replace with more basic data handling and routine procedures. Now, these are changes and they're happening quickly, as I say, but also our workers are not feeling prepared. In fact, only 15% of workers say that they have the education and training necessary to use AI effectively. And what we are also starting to see, it is those that are already disadvantaged that are feeling the impact the most. For girls and women, AI tools are often being using historical data and being developed by men. This brings in unintentional gender biases, and that has an impact. Women use Gen AI tools up to 20 percentage points less than their male peers in same jobs. For ethnic minorities, AI systems are primarily trained on a few high-resource languages. This excludes speakers of underrepresented languages. For learners with disabilities, AI-powered platforms are often not designed with accessibility in mind. And lower-income students, we know that only 1 in 20 students in low-income countries have reliable internet at home, and many struggle to access the hardware required to use some of these tools. So hopefully, it is clear education and skilling systems need to help students get AI ready and level the playing field. And I'll now hand over to my colleague Dayoung, who's going to tell us how.
Thanks, Charlie. Not over yet. So at Dalberg, we studied what are education systems doing today to equip our students. And the short answer is, unfortunately, not very much, at least not yet. So we asked a number of experts on what they should be teaching students. And we've learned that there is a lot of buzz around this one particular skill called prompt engineering, how to basically write commands for AI to produce useful outputs. But even that skill is rapidly becoming less and less useful because AI is becoming more and more self-sufficient at writing its own prompts. Now we're seeing the emerging rise of AI agents who you can delegate a set of complex tasks to and just walk away and check in on them. And that's going to be the future. We no longer may need to guide through prompts and micromanage AI through conversations that we've been having primarily to interact with Gen AI tools. And so what skills do our young people need today? As AI capabilities are growing and growing, the main skills that we need are actually the truly unique human skills that are able to decide what can AI do really well vis-a-vis humans, and use AI to elevate, to complement, to augment the uniquely human skills. So how can our education system really equip our students to be AI ready and master these tools? So first, we need to focus on some foundational concepts that underlie AI. And that's not going to change with new tools being developed. For example, how large language models are probabilistic in nature. And that's what makes it really powerful to give you really creative and diverse output. But that's also why these outputs can be incorrect or complete nonsense, some of you may have experienced. And it's important to understand that the outputs highly depend on the data that's going in, and the data that needs to be representative, that often is not. And so this foundational understanding is important for students to know, what is the role of AI? What are the risks and limitations today? Students also need to be able to practice, to have the ability to identify the right problem statements to deploy AI to. They need critical thinking skills to assess the outputs of AI. Is this actually useful or harmful or junk or incorrect? They need to have practice to be able to say, what are the things that I can delegate and trust AI to do well, versus really need to collaborate with and work with AI closely to manage. Students also need the right mindsets and perspectives. The world of AI is changing ever so rapidly. It's hard to keep up. They need curiosity, they need flexibility and open-mindedness, adaptability to actually keep up with the rapid developments in this sector. And finally, underlying all of this, they need strong ethical principles to actually discern what should AI do versus what can AI do. Understand the biases, the privacy issues, to protect themselves from the risks of AI, as well as to use and create with AI responsibly and safely going forward. And as Charlie mentioned, currently the AI world is highly inequitable. And so any AI program or curriculum really needs to center equity. First, how do we do that? We need to remove practically the barriers for students to learn and use these tools. So it can be as simple as making sure that the majority of these lessons happen during school hours with free access to these tools, rather than assuming that students will have access to these tools at home, which is often not the case. As Charlie mentioned, for students with learning disabilities or different types of special needs, we need to provide them with assistive technologies. For example, speech-to-text recognition tools for students with visual impairment to make sure they can access the tools that they need. We need to create space for dialogue and actually have healthy debates on the challenges of AI and the need for greater inclusion. And that can involve projects with real-world examples on how AI tools can help solve equity challenges in areas like health and education. And finally, the most important perhaps is to equip our teachers to understand these biases and issues in equity and inclusion in their own classrooms by helping them look at their student demographics, who's potentially getting left behind, and provide them with practical tips and advice on how to bring them along. For example, for girls, we found that it's very useful to have actually role models of women who are working in AI, because all you see in the media are mainly male scientists in this field. So far, we've talked a lot about the importance of having responsible and up-to-date curriculum, perhaps largely in the domain of academia, making sure that teachers receive the right training. But equally important are the roles of government and the private sector. We need enabling policies that are going to guide the development of responsible AI curriculum. And the government has a really important role to play for ensuring equitable access to these tools, not only in schools, but also in our public spaces, like libraries, for example. They also have a role to play in regulating AI tools to prevent harm, biases, misuses of AI, and so forth. And finally, the private sector has an important role to play to make sure that they're developing inclusive AI tools that are going into our school systems, and really shaping our AI curriculum to bridge the gap between what's taught inside the classroom with the skills you need to succeed in AI roles. And finally, inclusive hiring is really important for AI job roles so that students today see a diverse set of role models for them to look up to in the field of AI, not just male data scientists. And what is the role of philanthropies and funders, like many of you out there? And we think there is a really important role because, as I said, very little is being done today in the education system to bring students along. Education systems are known to be dinosaurs. It's very hard to change them. And so there's a role for philanthropies to get students AI ready faster, more thoughtfully, and more equitably. And we're seeing examples of this already. We've been collaborating with the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust, for example, who've mainstreamed an AI for Futures program across all secondary students in Hong Kong. And what's remarkable about this program is that it's did a lot in robust assessments to understand what's working well, what's not working, and to make sure that the curriculum is adapted to the latest developments. Garv will speak more about how to measure the unmeasurable, but that's a really important role philanthropies can play as these developments are happening very quickly. Second, as an example, in your neighboring country, Education Above All, based in Qatar, they have an innovation development program that's coming up with DigiWise, which is a really exciting curriculum to build AI readiness as well as digital media literacy skills for students in the lower middle income context. And it's a free and open source course that's meant to be in multiple languages and available both offline and online to address key access issues. And finally, just a couple of weeks ago, the Salesforce Foundation announced a decently sized grant to advance AI education globally. And they put a heavy emphasis on ensuring that underrepresented minority groups of both students and educators are brought along this journey. And so, my request to you, if you think that AI is one of the most transformative technologies of our time, I would encourage you to think about how can you all make investments and be a part of this journey to shape the readiness of our next generation of young people for an AI future. Thank you.